Hey guys, so today we're going to be looking at our nervous system after we experience trauma. Now, there's a lot of components to this, and you might be hearing this, kind of all over the internet, what's going on. But today we're going to kind of break it down to make it actually practical and simple to understand. Because when I first started on this journey of healing my body after trauma, one, I didn't even realize I was experiencing trauma. I didn't even know what that word really meant. I just figured, okay, I left this crazy person. I am free. I am like good. And then I didn't understand why I was burned out. So if you're like me, like what's going on? I left, I'm going, and you're still just completely exhausted mentally, physically, emotionally, then this episode is going to be for you. Welcome to Life Reassembled. This is the podcast where we learn how to reassemble our lives. I'm Julie Renee. I'm a life coach specializing in trauma recovery and a speaker. Together, we're going to be exploring what it really means to reassemble our lives on the rock after we've spent our entire lives piecing it together on sand. Here, we're going to talk about healing the mind, renewing the spirit, and organizing the parts of our lives that were once overwhelmed by complete chaos. Each episode is a space for reflection, faith, and practical steps for living with peace and intention. So, take a deep breath with me, settle in with some warm coffee, and let's begin reassembling our lives, piece by piece, together. So if you recently left, or even it's been a while that you left the traumatic situation that they were going through, and you didn't really recognize it as trauma, I've been there. You're just kind of out of that scene and you're moving on and you're making better choices. But overall, you're still completely exhausted. You're mentally fatigued. Your body's not working the way you thought it would. And you're thinking to yourself, well, wait a minute. I'm not in that situation anymore. Why do I feel like I'm still there even though I know I'm not? I'm consciously like aware everything is much better. It's not where I want it to be, but man, it's way better than it used to be. So what's going on? We have to remember that our body stores things that we didn't even realize it did. It's so amazing and it's actually used for good, but when it comes to something like this, it can be kind of harmful for us. So let's break it down. What is the nervous system in the first place and why is it so imperative that we work on it? Our body stores these memories even more than our memories do in our brain. And it's fascinating that our body stores these memories because it wants to make sure that at any moment we're able to leave that situation if we need to, because it's always trying to protect us. Our body is always in survival mode, which can be a really good thing because thank God we have that, right? So our nervous system has a couple of components to it. And as you can imagine from the name itself, nerves. Nerves are very heavily involved into our nervous system. But what's also a part of it is our brains, our spinal cord. And all of that works together. So if you've heard anything about why people are going into meditation, why people are kind of revamping their mind in regards to like the trauma and their body, it's because it's connected. You might have a simple morning routine that you don't even think about anymore. You are making your coffee, you're making your breakfast, you're taking your shower, you're getting dressed, you're out the door, and you're not even thinking about what you're doing because your mind's somewhere else, but your muscles remember. It knows where the coffee cups are. It knows where the coffee mug is. It knows how to do this. It knows how to do that. And you don't have to consciously think, okay, now I have to stop and look at the cupboard. Open the cupboard with my left hand. Grab the coffee cup with my right hand. Bring it down. Walk over to the coffee pot. Put the cup on the counter. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, this is what our brain is just doing automatically, like a computer. But we don't have to consciously say these things and take our time and really concentrate. Your body's automatically doing things like that. And so that is part of the nervous system. So again, it can be used beautifully because could you imagine every single day to do that, to think like that? Your brain wouldn't be able to do anything else. It'd be so exhausted that it's not really functioning right. So now when our nervous system gets damaged, we actually have to start doing this more. So all this is from our sensory input and our motor output. We gather information from inside and out of the body, sight, sound, touch, things that are familiar to us. And then our motor output is the triggers, the physical reactions, like moving our muscles. And if you really want to break it down into our nervous system, which is so fascinating, we have the somatic nervous system. This controls our voluntary movements of our skeletal muscles. And our autonomic nervous system manages our involuntary, our automatic functions like our heart rate, our digestion, split into the fight or flight or freeze mode. And this is what is so fascinating, guys. The more you study more about your body and how it works, the better it is to be on the other side of kind of being the master of it. When you know how your brain works, when you know how your body works, you can take control over it, study it in more depth, listen to other podcasts, do your own research, and figure out ways that works for you specifically. Now, I do create personalized programs for specific individuals. So the podcast is going to be more generic in the sense of like, hey, this is just what it's about. And these are the things that I had to study while I was going through the trauma because my brain was so bad and I was so malnourished. I was dying, guys, and I didn't understand what was going on. So I had to learn about my brain and how it functioned in order to combat all the dramatic effects that was coming at me constantly while I was still trying to spiritually figure out, how do I become a better wife through this horrible marriage? It was so much going on. But now that I've left that situation, I'm even more fascinated. And I love studying about the brain, about the nervous system. Now, as you guys can probably tell, I am not anywhere near a PhD status in regards to like how I understand this and all that. However, I do understand the basics and I know what works for me and I can understand how it works for other people, which is so cool because most people don't know this. They don't teach this in school, which I don't know why they don't teach us this. We should know these things because if we can understand our body and how it works, not just like, oh, where are babies coming from? Like, okay, that's great. But like, we don't need to know that at 14 when we're not trying to make babies. Like we need to actually know how our hormones are affecting our brains, which is why when we're at that age at 14, we act stupid. That's what we need to know. Not how to make like, well, come on guys. Like this is ridiculous. Anyway, that's a whole nother podcast and we're not going to go into that. But we are going to go into how our body works. You guys, our second brain is like our gut, right? If you guys have done any studies on that, that's what they call it because it really stores a lot of things and has a lot of memories and it does a lot of things, which is why our diet is so imperative, especially as we're recovering from anything. And so if you're at that point where you're just completely burnt out, I feel like that's just the best terminology to use, where you left, you quit, you did all these things, but you're just like not there yet. And you're like struggling with that. A big part of it is your diet. You're not eating correctly, or you're not eating enough, or you're not eating too much of the right things, or you're eating too much sugar. It could be a variety of different things. Again, love to work with you on a personalized program. And that's just part of it. The diet is just like such a drop in the bucket, but it really is a big drop. And so our digestive system holds trauma. It holds that nausea, that cramping, that bloating, and all these horrible things that we're like, why is this weight not coming off? Guys, this has been a big deal for me because I'm like, why can't I lose this weight? And I've learned that my body is still storing this unnecessary fats that it doesn't really need anymore. And I'm just kind of like, okay, what is going on? And learning that my body is so amazing that it's holding on to it because it's trying to protect itself. So it's a great way to just like forgive my body and just say, okay, I got you, body. You're still scared. And it's just like, I'm like mothering my body and taking care of it, nurturing it of like, hey, it's okay. Like, I got you. I understand. Like that was so horrible and that was such a long time. I got you. Let's work together on this because now the fat is actually harming us and not helping us, right? So there has to be that shift in season where that was helpful because the body didn't know when it was going to eat. It didn't know how much it was going to eat. And it's amazing how it stores these calories on purpose. So if not only you're experiencing burnout, but you're experiencing like unnecessary your like fat loss isn't coming naturally when it should be, or you're like doing everything right. Like I cut out the processed foods, I cut out the fast food, I cut out all the extra sugars, and I was exercising and I'm active and I'm doing cardio and I'm like naturally just active all the time, and like nothing for like 6 months, 8 months, a year. I'm like, what is going on? Like, come on, body. Like, where am I missing this? Right. And so learning more about that has just been fascinating. Okay. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the nervous system. You're like thinking too, like, where does it all hold? It holds in different areas. So it holds in our muscles, which is why, like, if you experience a car accident, why you might still try to brake when you see a car too close to you and you're not, and you're in the passenger seat or something, right? Like, it's that memory that your body remembers, your muscles remember, like, hey, when this happens, we do this to protect ourselves. And again, it's your body's way of protecting itself. It's so beautiful, guys. We cannot be upset of how our body's reacting. We have to understand why it's reacting that way and then work with it to get to a place where we can be comfortable and productive, because sometimes it's holding us back. Like that last example doesn't necessarily hold you back on anything, but like the fat cells in my body, I'm like, no, because it's making me heavier. It's making it harder to breathe. It makes it harder for me to do the things that I want to do because it's unnecessary and I don't need this extra fat. You know what I'm saying? Like, so there's a way to acknowledge like why you do certain things, and then you have to decide, is this something that I still need to have, or is this something I can get rid of? And the nervous system also, if we're not taking care of our nervous system, we could really damage our anxiety, our difficulty resting, which that was very difficult for me. I still have a hard time. I've noticed that when I'm being productive, I have to do it in smaller stages because I'm working that up. It's not the fact that I get distracted or anything like that. It's more of like I can't rest for too long. And so I'm going to have to teach myself and be aware of it and be purposeful about it, because it's really hard for me to have that actual rest. And so I do a podcast about sleeping and things of that nature. And so, because that's so huge, guys, so huge. When we're not sleeping correctly, when we're not eating correctly, it doesn't help us in our recovery, and we need to heal. And it's not overnight. We have to give ourselves grace, guys. It's not overnight. I'm 3 years out as of the time of this recording, and I'm still having difficulty. But the great news is, it's not like, oh my gosh, really 3 years? Let's just hang on there a second. I haven't been working on it for 3 years, okay? So it has been 3 years since I've left. However, for the first year, I was just like trying to do, my concentration was more on like, I need to make sure that I have money coming in. So that was my first year. I was really what I worked on, and sleeping. Even though like I wasn't like sleeping like how I should be, I just slept as much as I possibly could because my body was recovering from the trauma that I was experiencing, that I couldn't sleep right when I was with him. So it was like years of being sleep deprived for so long that I just needed to sleep as much as I could whenever I could. So I gave you guys some examples about what to look out for, and it's going to be different for everybody. Again, this is why we have personalized programs, because we need to really concentrate on like what's going on for you. Because maybe you have an amazing diet and you don't have a weight issue and things like that, but you're having anxiety and you can't stop smoking, or they're having racing thoughts, or they go on rabbit trails and you just can't figure out a way to like stop that from happening. It's exhausting. We have to be so aware of our mental fatigue and our emotional fatigue, because that really affects the rest of us. So sleeping and eating and all these beautiful things really work together for the best part of our body. And it's difficult for us to just assume that we can just wake up the next day and do all this when we haven't had any practice doing this correctly. Where do I begin? I want to change my diet. I want to change my sleep pattern. I don't want to be anxious. I want to be productive. I want to make more money. I want to eat. You have all these different goals and things, and it's just like it becomes overwhelming. And the worst thing you can do is just give up on yourself. You got out of a relationship, and that was giving up when someone else was giving up on you, and most likely calling you things that you are not, and you believed it. And so you already have gone through all of that. You don't need to go through that again for yourself. You don't have to be your own abuser. And I believe a huge part of releasing ourselves from that abusive relationship is detaching ourselves spiritually and emotionally from who they used to be. because a lot of times we become that person because our bodies are used to it. Our minds are used to it. And so since we don't have a person to call us names and to yell at us and to pretty much shame and condemn us for not being a better version of ourselves, we become that person accidentally. Isn't that insane, guys? And it's, again, our brain doesn't know the difference. Our brain is just like, that's what's familiar. This is what I'm used to. And so it just wants to have that familiarity because our brains are assuming that anything is familiar is safe. And that's not always the case. So we have to retrain ourselves. The Bible tells us to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. And it really starts there. So if you want to eat better, if you want to sleep better, if you want to not have anxious thoughts, all this starts with our mind and our body follows. We have to learn how to have our body submit to our brain. And it's constantly fighting because, again, we are flesh and spirit. And for those who are in Christ Jesus, it is like a constant war because our flesh wants to do one thing, which wants to lead to death, by the way, because it doesn't know any better. But our spirit's like, no, hey, let's not do this. Let's go this way. And so sometimes it's a constant battle, especially if you're dealing with an addiction, if you're dealing with something that is very, again, what you're familiar with. And it's just like that constant, like, this is familiar, this is safe, this is safe, this is safe. But when you're relying on your brain to tell you it's safe, hey, this cigarette's safe. Hey, this movie is safe. Hey, this, location, these people, whatever is safe because I'm familiar with it, even though it's destructive, we're fighting and not allowing God to be our safety. The second that we rely on ourselves to have this safety for our brains and our bodies, we're not relying on God to be our safety. So we have to train our bodies to submit to the Spirit, to submit to what's better for us. And you guys, we don't do this all at once because you'll burn yourself out, you'll get frustrated, and you'll be that condemning, repeating pattern in your mind of like, you're not good enough and all these different things that are so not true, by the way, because God didn't just die for nobody. He died for you. He makes you valuable. A life was taken for you. A life. Not just jewels, not just money, not a camel. Like, no, a life. And we have to acknowledge, like, okay, I'm worth something. So I have to become that. And you guys, we cannot become this by ourselves. I'm here for you. You have to have a support team, people who are in your corner who you can trust, not those who are going to have you harm, not those who are going to cause you harm, but those who are actually going to support you, who are going to be truthful with you, who are going to be your advocate, and who are going to be accountability partner. You need these people. And if you refuse to have these people in your life, then you're purposely setting yourself up for failure. And you're like, just, okay, devil, come get me because I just don't know what else to do. And it's too hard for me to just submit to Christ. And yeah, it is hard to submit to Christ. And we're going to be talking about that on another podcast episode. Because that is like where there is so much life, guys. Like there's no life without Christ. It all comes back to him no matter what we try to do. And you will always, you guys know this, like deep down, even if you're like so anti-God, so whatever, or you love God and you're just like running away from him or whatever it is, like you guys know at the end of the day, you guys know it deep down inside, you know it. And so it's like, why fight it? It's exhausting to fight. It is harder to stay in the life that you are at, even though it has temporary ease to it. It's all false. It's all fake. It's all temporary. And then you have to do it again and again and again to have the same hit, to have the same feeling. Again, we're retraining our nervous system, we're retraining our brains, we're retraining our bodies. And it has to be one thing at a time. We have to remember that God made these bodies and it is our job to protect them and to love them and to take care of them. And this world is only going to offer us things that are going to harm us because all they care about is making money. You think the Doritos company cares about? No, they're like, let's make a profit and make this thing as yummy as possible and as crazy as possible. It'll make the coolest commercials, make sure that everybody knows what Doritos is, because if I'm on this podcast and you don't know what Doritos is, you've lived under a rock. You know what I'm saying? Because everyone knows what it is because they did such a great job of marketing and making sure at one point or another you have at least tried it. And if you tried it and you know it and it's everywhere, you can trust them. That's the false portion of it. They only care about the bottom dollar. That's the only thing they care about, is what they're bringing back home. Do you think that the CEOs eat Doritos? No, because they know what's in them and they know how addictive it is. And they didn't get in their position making sure that they purposely made you guys buy them to make them rich. And they don't even eat them. We have to be aware, guys. We have to be aware of what's going on. So my homework for you guys today, because there's a lot here. My homework for you today, guys, is just to be aware. Why don't you guys just write down what you notice about your body? Like where it's going off the trail in any way. And just write it down. Don't be upset at yourself. Don't condemn yourself. Don't shame yourself. That's like the last thing that your body needs. That's the last thing your mind needs. And remember, like, oh, I've noticed that I'm doing this when this happens. I notice I'm reacting this way when that happens. I've noticed that I do have to walk myself through getting a cup of coffee, but that seems that it should be natural. I shouldn't have to think about that. But why? And give yourself grace, give yourself mercy, give yourself permission, give yourself love. I have this story, and I'll end with this, about learning these tools of forgiving yourself and loving yourself through the process is very difficult, but it takes practice, just like with anything else. You guys, you have to practice this. You've already practiced enough of the shame, the guilt, the condemnation, hating yourself. We have plenty of practice hating ourselves. Most likely, right? Now we have to change it around to love ourselves. And it's much more difficult because it's not the norm. And you're going to be your only cheerleader. Again, grab that Bible, because God is the first one to love us. That's the only way we're able to love ourselves, is because He loved us. And we can't love others until we love ourselves. It's just impossible. That's part of the system. God has an order to things. So one time I had to drive really far, and I was all excited because I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to do my computer work. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And all these things. I was so excited because I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the most productive day. And then I get to the location that I was going to, and I forgot my computer. It was right by the door. I had everything ready to go. And in the midst of me loading my car, I somehow forgot my computer. And I knew if I went all the way back and then came back to where I wanted to go, the whole day would be wasted. I really only had like that much time to like really work on what I wanted to work on. And I could feel my body becoming angry with myself. And I could feel it like rising up so slowly, because I was like allowing it to, because again, it was my muscle memory. This was natural for me to just hate myself, because that's what I was used to getting. So I have to give it to myself, because He's not there to yell at me. And as it was coming up, the Lord told me to forgive myself. And I didn't want to, guys. I was like, again, that flesh and spirit fighting. I'm like, I don't want to forgive myself. I messed up. This is so stupid. And then I just did it. And I said it out loud. I said it in an angry voice. I was like, I forgive you, Julie. And then I laughed because it sounded silly. Way sillier than just now. And then I laughed and I was like, I forgive you, Julie. I forgive you. And my body automatically calmed down. I put my hand on my chest and I said, I love you. I forgive you. Okay, now let's break down what happened. How can we make sure that that doesn't happen again in the future? And I just talked myself through it as if I was on the outside looking in. And you know, it already happened. It wasn't life or death. I didn't hurt somebody. I just forgot my computer. It wasn't life or death. And so in that moment, I learned the imperativeness of forgiving myself and loving myself. And since then, I've never forgotten my computer. I'm usually pretty good about that now on, or anything else. But just setting myself up for success in the future, giving myself permission to make a mistake, and then figuring it out. Like I figured it out, and then it ended up being like actually one of the best productive days I've ever had. And could you imagine if I didn't listen to God and I listened to my flesh and I was like, I hate you, and da 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 da, and all these horrible things we say to ourselves that you guys know because you guys have done it, I'm sure, at one point or another. I might be the only one. Let me know. I would have like came back and I would have been angry and my heart rate and just da da da, and I have no time and da da da, and it would have gotten worse. Like, what good is that? There's no grace in that. Like, hey, things happen. I did my best. I had it ready. I just didn't make that extra trip. Okay. What do we do from here? How do we move on from here in the best way possible? And I will share this with you guys because this is a true story. Like, these things happen. And I want to hear your true story. Forgive yourself. Give yourself permission. And watch how naturally your nervous systems, just in those moments, relax. And it's amazing because when we're not angry, we're not upset, we're not condemning ourselves, our brains can actually make logical decisions. We can make things right. Share with me your homework. You guys can DM me in Instagram. That's kind of like the best place to get a hold of me. Your conquest. Hey, this happened. Like, I want to hear from you guys. And then it's not just like a social media, like trying to get viewers, trying to interactions. Like, no, like, I really want to hear from you. I really want to know how it's helping you, what's not working. And then maybe something else helped you that I didn't mention so far on the podcast. I'm always learning. I'm always trying to expand not only what I went through, but what others went through and what they've experienced, because like just the stories that I've heard so far is absolutely incredible, and what's worked for people and what they're struggling with. And my whole goal with the Life Reassembled is to help you guys get from that trauma, drama, llama, and get you over here where you're surviving in a different way. You are on your own. You are making it. You're sleeping good. You're eating well. You're not having anxiety issues. And you're able to function with your brain working at full capacity, with your body being able to do things at full capacity. We're getting rid of the trauma. We're getting rid of the PTSD. We're getting rid of all these unnecessary habits that we've learned and trained ourselves in through the past relationship. We're in a different season now, guys. We have to be a different person. We can't keep doing the same things that we used to do and expect our lives to be any better, if that makes any sense. All right, guys, let me know. Follow me and then join our Facebook group. If you're interested in joining the community and kind of getting together with other like-minded people who are in this and we're together, we have a supportive Facebook group. All those links are on the show notes, and I will talk to you guys next week. Thank you for joining us for today's conversation on Life Reassembled. If this episode spoke to you, share it with someone who is also rebuilding their life, because none of us are meant to do this alone. To keep growing with us, join us on the Life Reassembled Facebook community. Check out our free identity blueprint on our website, or learn more about our coaching and upcoming courses at reassembledlife.com. That's re-assembledlife.com. You can also connect with me on Instagram at Life Reassembled for daily encouragement and resources. Remember that healing doesn't happen overnight, but every small step forward is part of reassembling your life.